fairly. You can't have free trade unless it's also fair trade. And the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, has the authority to do that. So we hope the Article 3 branch of government, the judicial branch, will acknowledge the same and allow this to continue. You're right, it'd be chaos. It'd be a big mess if they tried to unwind it. And the President has done an extraordinary job. He's getting us back on a level playing field with our allies around the world and even the adversaries taking note. We've got to get this resolved. I think there's some uncertainty that still remains, but it will be finalized here soon unless the court gets in the middle of it. So we'll see what they do in November. I hope they do the right thing, and I hope the President is allowed to continue what he's doing, because it is working for American taxpayers and American citizens everywhere.
Well, knowing him, I mean, he wants to build some factories. I don't blame him. He wants to build some factories. Fascinating. By the way, one of the hottest stock sectors in this massive stock market rally, which I think has a lot to do with Mr. Trump's pro-growth program, is industrials, old-fashioned manufacturing industrial companies. And Mr. Trump wants to have a level playing field, build some more here. So I think that's great. But I have a thought, sir. You know I like to weigh in with you every now and then. You have this tariff revenue surplus. As I say, it could be $300 billion for calendar year 2025. How about returning it to the taxpayers? What do you think of that, Speaker Johnson?
Well, there's a school of thought that says that's the best way to do it, but we've also got to manage the national debt. We need to pay that down as well. You and I both know it's a big national security threat to us right now, and we're looking to be responsible and good stewards of that taxpayer funding, and we can use that tariff revenue in a number of ways. But we're going through that. That's part of the process. Part of our small d democratic process is to have those debates and arguments, and ultimately we'll do the right thing. We're trying to keep steady hands on the wheel in the Congress to allow the President to keep doing and advancing these policies, and it is working for the American people. And that's why, Larry, I'm very bullish about the midterm elections coming up in 2026, because people are going to feel the positive effects of all these pro-growth policies. Everything we did in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the working families tax cuts, and all the rest, we're doing right by the people. We're fulfilling our promises, and they'll feel that, and I think they'll reward it.
You get your blue-collar bloom, sir. You get your blue-collar boom. You're going to defy history and pick up seats next year. That's just some Kudlow thinking.
That's right.
All right. Speaker Mike Johnson.
I like it.
Thank you, sir.
That's actually the interesting idea, is that we're kind of seeing the opposite of a blue-collar boom right now. So Larry Kudlow asked Speaker Mike Johnson, hey, what do you think about stimulus checks? And what do you think about the Supreme Court making a ruling on tariffs? And Mike Johnson literally says, well, the Supreme Court should stay in their lane and stay out of tariffs. Tariffs are the responsibility of Congress. Wait a second. Then why is the president issuing the tariffs? So what you're basically saying is the Supreme Court can't talk about tariffs because that's not in their lane. It belongs in Congress's lane. But wait a minute. Why is the president doing it? That means he's out of his lane. Because the Supreme Court isn't going to rule on tariffs. The Supreme Court is going to rule on whether or not Trump is in his lane or out of his lane. Mike Johnson just conveniently doesn't mention that, mind you. But understand, we're not going to hear anything from the Supreme Court for a while anyway. The Supreme Court might hear arguments in November on tariffs, but they're not actually going to issue any kind of ruling until like February or maybe as late as June of next year, because that's what they do. They hear their arguments, and then up to 3 to 6 months later is when you actually get a ruling, which means Trump's tariffs are basically just going to continue probably for another 6 to 9 months from now, which means there's not going to be relief from the Supreme Court on tariffs. In addition to that, you have Mike Johnson asked about, hey, what do you think about returning some of that extra tariff money to taxpayers? To this, he says, well, we want to be mindful of the debt. We're considering this. Trump has mentioned this, right? Trump has mentioned a potential rebate. New York is doing inflation refund checks. California did inflation refund checks. It's possible. Does it seem probable before midterms? I'd put it at like a 30% chance. Because, see, Larry Kudlow says if you have a blue-collar boom, you will win midterms hands down. But the problem is, the blue-collar workers are suffering. Most Americans are suffering. There's not a great economy for most people. When the top 10% of Americans make up about 50% of all consumer spending, basically it's the rich who are driving everything. There's a reason why Chipotle and Cheesecake stocks are going down, just as an example, because people are spending less money in these stores. I mean, look at some of the actual data. Chipotle, when you look at the revenue number, the top line revenue number, up 3% year over year. But wait a minute. That's only because they added stores. They added more lemonade stands. When you actually look at the numbers, you see, oh wait, for the existing stores you had, the existing stands you had, your sales are actually down 4%. You're forecasting flat sales while also adding stores. What does this mean? People are out of money. Rich people can only eat so many burritos. You don't need more rich people buying burritos. You need more people, more Americans buying burritos. And when people start suffering, they stop spending $18 on a damn burrito. The same problem is happening at the Cheesecake Factory. Look at Cheesecake Factory. They bring 5.7 cents of every dollar to the bottom line. That's terrible. Their comp sales growth is anemic at 1.2%. If we go into a recession, there will not be a blue-collar boom. You will end up seeing companies like Cheesecake go bankrupt, which is crazy to say. But Cheesecake just took out it was about $500 million in debt in the last quarter just to try to float their expenses. They have about $250 million in available cash right now with, about twice that in bills to pay. You got about $500 million in bills to pay. They got $250 million in available cash. So they don't even have enough money to pay for their bills right now. Their free cash flow is about $30 million in 6 months. So every month you're growing your available cash by about $5 million. But where does that get you at the end of the year? Nowhere close to $500 million. So Cheesecake either needs to sell some stock or raise some more debt because they're out of money and their business is not profitable enough to actually generate enough capital. Because as these businesses raise money, by raising prices, their comp sales end up declining, like you're seeing at Chipotle. Now, look at a company like Dave & Buster's. Dave & Buster's decides, we're going to raise prices so much by investing in a fancier restaurant setup and, more TVs or LED walls or whatever. But what ends up happening? They raise the prices of the experience of going to Dave & Buster's so much that people stop showing up as much. And so what's happened to Dave & Buster's stock? Well, Dave & Buster's stock, since the beginning of the year, has fallen off a cliff. Dave & Buster's stock is now trading for less than $20 per share. This is a sign of a company that thought, hey, we'll do well if we blow a bunch of money on capital expenditures while raising prices on people. But people are revolting. People get pissed. The very blue-collar people that Larry Kudlow is talking about are pissed. And so they stop going out. So sales go down. This is not a surprise. Any consumer business that's reliant on more people coming rather than the wealth of that person suffers, and we may already be in a recession. Now, we won't know until after the fact. The stock market certainly isn't going to forecast a recession. We're at all-time highs on everything. The stock market is kicking butt. A stock that we bought at IPO just in the last month is up over 25%. And we sent that to course members. It IPOs, it's up over 25%. Still today, still rising today. It was up like 5% today. Of course, you want all those calls, make sure you're part of the Meet Kevin membership over at meetkevin.com. But remember, these companies aren't reliant on more rich people who can spend money on big things. They're reliant on more people showing up. And I get it. Dave & Buster's thought, hey, if we put some big LED walls into I filmed this with my meta glasses, into our properties and remodel with wood paneling or whatever, we'll be able to make more money. But then you sit down and you realize that a Dave & Buster's quality ribeye is going to cost you $35. And they're going to charge you for kids' sodas because they raise prices on everything. And the damn Down the Clown machine that is literally part of the experience as to why you're going there is damaged to where the stupid machine doesn't even work right. Because the little, long and short of it, basically, we are still able to win because we know the trick of like first of all, okay, we realize the machine's damaged, we'll just re-strategize a little bit. But the little bar that sets up the top guys just goes up and down 3 times, so we kind of have to delay when we go for the top row again, because it goes up and down 3 times because it's broken, it's glitched out, it doesn't realize that the clown's already up. But much like, the economy for poor folks right now, it's all a giant clown show. And so, are we actually going to get stimmies? Certainly not before the Supreme Court makes a decision on tariffs. Mike Johnson says they need to stay in their lane, and you know what? They probably will, because the Supreme Court is a majority of Republicans, and they'll probably side with Donald Trump, and we'll have tariffs for a while. But you're not going to get any kind of stimulus before a Supreme Court decision, because all that money might have to get repaid back if tariffs are deemed illegal. So you can't pay out money that you might have to pay back. So it has to be liability-free money. Then, right before midterms, you better hope this economy soft lands if Republicans are supposed to stay in power. Because if this economy does not soft land, and the economy doesn't start getting better for everyday Americans, then Republicans are going to lose in midterms. That will show up in data. That will show up in polling data. And will actually contribute to the potential of getting stimulus checks next summer. Because I think Republicans are going to go, crap, if the economy doesn't get better, we have to do something to get people to vote for us. Quick, checks! It could happen. That's why I put it at a 30% chance, because I think there's a good chance the vast majority of our consumer economy is already in a recession. Financial markets don't want to hear that because they're not pricing it in at all. So, the problem though with stimulus is, you always risk creating inflation, but that, came out of COVID because we printed so much money. I think the bigger issue is deflation, not inflation.
Knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.